Toy Fair is a highly anticipated trade show where companies gather to showcase current and future products for the upcoming year. Now, in the past, Mezco Toyz has been relatively quiet when it comes to questions regarding line and customer concerns. So as I wandered around the Mezco booth, I was approached by a number of representatives that asked me, "Hey, do you have any questions?" Of course I have questions. Thus, the door was slightly open and allowed for this, the 2019 Mezco Toyz unofficial Q&A wrap-up. So before we get started, there's a few things I gotta get out of the way. I was recently able to attend Toy Fair this year, and it was a really great experience. I saw a lot of toys, I met a lot of creators, and through the course of about 2 or 3 days, myself, Matthew Rodden, and I guess we'll call him Collector X, you know who you are, we were able to sprinkle some questions throughout the walkthroughs and casual conversations with some very reputable individuals at Mezco. So the individuals that did provide this information that was gathered will not be revealed, hence the reason why we're going to call this the unofficial Q&A wrap-up. Now I know what somebody's going to say, "Paige, you're just making all of this up. Why should I believe you?" And that's a good question. I can assure you that either one or all 3 of the members of the contributing team were present when these questions were being asked. And then at the end, all the information was gathered and each one of the members verified that the information was correct. Another question somebody might ask is, why don't you just reveal who you spoke to? It would give this video more credibility if you just cited your sources. And that's a very good point. Yes, it would add more validity to the questions and answers, but I think everyone can admit that this is something that we've been waiting for a while now. The ability to ask questions about figure details, release dates, design decisions, etc. This, my friends, is the first step. It's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. I feel that this is one of the hottest topics that's discussed in the Mezco group. I talked to the representative and I explained that I was an admin in one of the groups and that I understood the frustration collectors feel when they spend their hard-earned money on a premium price figure, and when their expectations aren't met, it's very disappointing. Now, where that disappointment becomes frustration is when you're trying to communicate that disappointment and you feel like your concerns are not being even heard or taken in consideration. As the conversation continued, the Mezco rep did tell me he understood the frustration and he wanted me to know that Mezco does care and they do take an active part in reading comments and feedback in the groups. Now, they did admit that the message boards were kind of a sore subject, but it's not because of what is being said, it's how it's being said. I told him I could see his point, and as an admin, we've been trying to improve some of the topics and how they're presented to give people a chance to voice their concerns, but try to do it in a constructive manner so that everyone involved benefits. It's very easy to say something sucks, but what helps is the ability to identify what the problem is and give a possible solution. I didn't get the feeling when I was talking to him, as well as others, that they didn't care, but quite the opposite. One thing that they did mention, and I've said this before too, is that they are still a relatively small and new division of a toy company. The 112 Collective was established, I think in 2014, and it didn't start producing figures until 2015. So they're coming up on their 4th year in July. This still hasn't prevented them from establishing a successful brand with soft goods and steadily trying to move outside of that brand with offerings such as like Iron Man and Hulk. They did say that they understood that there's been a few missteps and they don't want to lean on an excuse for being a new company, but they are trying to provide a better overall product. So this was probably the most interesting topic that was discussed and one that had the most layers. So I'm going to try my best to explain it from what I heard from the Mezco rep. And if anybody in the group has additional information or something that I got incorrect, please feel free to clarify me. Again, When I'm going through the scenario, I'm going to use some fictitious numbers. So it's just to give you an idea of projected cost. So one of the things that they wanted me to know was they are aware that there's a global demand for the products that they're producing. And while it seems that they're catering to U.S. customers, they told me that they are working on ways to be able to provide their products internationally. One of the biggest issues with shipping internationally is cost. So I've sent Mezco figures to people in different locations all around the world. What usually happens is I go, I pack it up, I pay for it, and I pay a shipping fee. And usually on the packaging, you have to fill out a customs form. And on that custom form, you'll put the value of what the actual package is. And just a little side note, I had a friend of mine that I was shipping something to him. When you're shipping overseas, it's best to mark it as either a gift or a prize. And the reason why is because sometimes this will help our international friends over there avoid some of the fees completely. Now that seems pretty easy, just sending a single package to somebody as an individual. A company runs into something way bigger. Now when a company sends out a product, they have to give a product listing of everything that's in that product. So for example, let's say Harley has a gun. That gun may carry an additional fee of $5, and her other accessories that she may have may cost nothing or may cost more. But those additional fees are added on to the figure, increasing the total price of the figure, of which the international buyer would have to pay. Another factor that comes into play is that different countries have different custom regulations. So while most of her accessories carry a possible tax, the baseball bat that she has may not even be allowed in that country. So now the customer is not only paying a premium price for the figure, they're also paying an inflated price for the taxes and possibly not even be able to get all the accessories originally advertised. Tracking and returns were also something that they were concerned with. We discussed a bunch of other things too, but the bottom line is that they understand that there's a market and they're trying to explore all possible solutions to be able to provide shipping internationally. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Hulk. These are some of the figures that collectors feel have been the subject of the old bait and switch, where a company will show a figure and then not get the exact representation of that figure when they purchase it. The answer that was given to this question was the figures that are displayed at fairs, shows, cons, web solicitations, these are all subject to change and or pending licensing approval. Some of the factors that contribute to these changes are design and tooling costs for a particular figure. Sometimes these costs actually impact the final version. So I think everybody remembers PX Punisher. Originally, he was supposed to have that baklava mask, and for some reason, he didn't come with it. Some of the decisions that are made have to do with timetables, production, and making sure that they all fall within a budget. The main takeaway that I got from this conversation was, unless the figure is released and it's out in the open market, all the figures are subject to change. I personally don't see this as a bad thing because two of the most highly anticipated figures, Jim Gordon and John Wick, they were noticeably missing from Toy Fair. And when I asked them about it, I was told that John Wick was being retooled. Now, what retooling consists of, I have no idea, but I can only hope that they saw how well Gomez went over and they're going to do a similar body for both Gordon and Wick. Another one of the most talked about issues in the group is probably online purchasing and exclusives. Mezco reps said that they're trying different methods to curb the issues such as site crashing and also trying to level the playing field to allow customers to be able to have the ability to purchase items as quickly and as easily as possible. One of the things that Mezco's done is given a countdown clock so it can give collectors the advance notice for these site exclusives. Now, personally for me, I do not like countdown clocks. I understand that it gives collectors advance notice of when they're going to be able to purchase an item, but the 3 times that they have done it, it's crashed the site multiple times, sometimes during the finalization of the payment process. It just seems that giving too far in advance notice only floods the site and causes more frustration than anything. I did agree that the new purchase limit option that they implemented seems to make the process run a little bit smoother. And again, upon writing this wrap-up, Mezco listed for the very first time ever their Toy Fair exclusive Agent Gomez for purchase. The listing not only went up that day, but the payment was processed, tracking numbers were assigned, and it was shipped out the next day. Some collectors even received their Agent Gomez the following day. After, Mezco posted an update stating that they kind of understood that the demand for the figure was so high that they were going to offer another listing, and this one was going to be a comic book version. That listing stayed up till probably the next day, and it gave everyone an opportunity to acquire the figure. Now, this was a topic I thought was really going to strike a nerve with Mezco, especially because this topic is primarily linked to Toy Fair and the insane markup value that some of these exclusive figures seem to go for practically days after the event. I asked them, since they do view the community boards, how do they feel about seeing certain figures, particularly exclusives, go for 2 to 3 times the original amount? Because to me, that increased revenue could potentially go back into the company. I also asked if the aftermarket pricing would have any potential impact on the price of future releases. The answer I got was very quick, it was very definitive, and they said, we have no control over the aftermarket price. Now, this was a question that made sense to me in hindsight, because after a few days of watching exclusives getting posted on eBay and trade groups, Mezco decided to release their Toy Fair and comic version of Gomez. So they realized that there's an inflated market for their figures. They also realized that they don't have control over how much a figure's value will be once it's released. It's a subjective topic for both parties that doesn't really seem to have an answer, but they are doing things within their means to address it. Now, while there were some great reveals such as Gomez, Captain Marvel, H2 Michael Myers, They Live, and Wonder Woman, just to name a few, there were a couple of notable figures such as John Wick, Jim Gordon, Robin Hood, and Flash that were missing. Now, we already know that John Wick is being retooled and it's not ready for its debut, but I wanted to ask him about projects that they've displayed at past shows and if those concepts were shelved or just completely scrapped. The way that it was explained to me is that all the figures that are shown are prototypes, and some are even used to gauge interest. An example of this would have been the Batman vs. Superman Batmobile. Now, while the concept and interest was there, the cost to develop and the price point was something that they just didn't feel was going to be fair to the collectors. It's also another reason why they moved to this new Batmobile concept that they're currently working on. They wanted to try to find a balance between the production cost and the price point, giving collectors a quality product like they did in the past with the Judge Dredd Lawmaster line. So in order not to drag this video out, I just want to try to finish off with some quick hitters just to wrap things up. One of the questions that was asked was if they had any plans to balance out the release dates moving forward, especially towards the latter part of the year. And the answer that was given was they're trying to regulate the releases, but some of the things that affect the dates are unforeseen events such as production delays, retooling, and dock strikes. Are there any plans to improve on the female bodies? The answer that was given was yes. Wonder Woman has new parts that are sculpted, mainly the chest and the elbow area. What are the chances of getting Star Trek and or Universal Monsters back? The answer that was given was those licenses are not lost and the line isn't officially dead. What happened to Robin Hood and Justice League Flash? And the answer that was given was nothing is officially off the books at this time. So there's still a possibility we might see those. Are Blade, Jason Voorhees, Homecoming Spider-Man, and Ghostbusters still on track for the end of March? The answer that was given was that's the plan, barring any major setbacks or unfortunate events. They also told me that at the time of Toy Fair, Ghostbuster was on the water and it's heading towards the States. Will 89 Batman be a standard or a Mezco exclusive release? The answer that was given was, unfortunately, this is not solidified yet, so the chances will probably be 50-50. Is the Batmobile still happening? The answer that was given was yes, it's still on the table, but they are working on a lot of things to try to make it happen. What's up with the changes with Sovereign Knight? And the answer that was given was the figure that's in the display is still in the prototype stage. And it's very possible that the figure that was there at Toy Fair is an earlier prototype and it's not what was revealed in the past. So the figure is still being modified, so what's on display is not the final version. So wait until the release. Will Gomez be a standard release? Now this answer was given day one of Toy Fair and they had not released the Toy Fair or the comic version of Gomez. So they were very tight-lipped about it, but they did say that there were going to be multiple plans in the works for that figure, meaning there was going to be a variety of versions of that character, kind of to mirror the release that they had with the 9-inch versions. A couple things that I took away from all of this is that Mezco is a specialty company, and while they've primarily been dealing in soft goods, they're trying to expand on the line that they already have. They also understand is as they grow, there's a higher demand globally for them to be able to produce these products. And as they grow, they understand that the problems that they've been having, such as QC issues, online ordering, release dates, and customer service, are going to be subject to a lot more scrutiny. They have been taking ownership of these problems by creating and implementing process improvements to try to course correct those setbacks. It doesn't mean, however, that a company should not be held accountable for the things that they are doing. I think the main thing we have to understand is that it takes time to identify the problems, create a possible solution, and then implement those solutions to see if they even work. All right, guys, so there you have it. It's the 2019 Toy Fair unofficial Q&A session. It's finally in the books. I had an absolute blast at this event. This was something that I had been working on for about a year, and there was a couple times I didn't think it was going to even happen or go the way that I thought it was going to go, but in the end, it made it all worth it. And finally, I'd like to also send out a special thank you to the Mezco Toy team, Matthew Rodden, D Amazing, Boog Nice, Daniel LeBlanc, Errol Brenman, Brian, Dave BX, City, New York, and everybody else that's watching this video. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for your support. And that's it.